Chapter 21, Climate. So we've talked a little bit about weather. Let's talk about climate. There's a difference between the two. Weather is going to be constantly changing, and it's going to refer to the state of the atmosphere at any given time and place. Climate is based on long-term observations of weather, and it's going to be used to describe a place or a region. So looking at the major climate zones for the Earth, we have split up into 3 different sections. So you can see here on the image to the right, from 23 degrees north of the equator to 23 degrees south of the equator, we have the tropical area. We have between 23.5 degrees to 66.5 degrees, both north and south. Those are the temperate zones. And then anything above 66.5 degrees or below that, as far as north and south, is the polar zone. So let's talk about the tropical zone first. Again, it's between 23.5 degrees north and 23.5 degrees south of the equator. You can see that especially defined here in the image at the bottom where that whole red section, that is your tropical zone. Your temperate zone, that's again between 23.5 and 66.5 north and south of the equator. Again, that's represented by the red zone you can see in the image here. Okay. And the polar climate zone, 66.5 degrees north to the pole and 66.5 degrees south to the pole. Again, you can see that in the red image here, or in the red portion of the image. Okay, so very little is actually in the polar zone. So your climate zone projects, and that's really what you're going to work on today. If you're doing a video or if you're doing a presentation, you need to have 9 slides, or at least 8. So slide number 1 should be the name of your climate zone and your group members' names. Slide 2 should be just images that you've pulled for that climate zone. Slide 3 should be any factors that affect your climate. Slide 4, any countries or major cities that are in your climate zone. Slide 5, common plants and animals found in your climate zone. Slide 6, the effect on the population that's in that climate zone, and any events that happen because of population. So if there's any detrimental effects because of overpopulation in the area, please put those in. Slide 7, any foods found in that particular zone. Slide 8, any cultural events that happen. And slide 9, that's the bonus slide, that's other information and a conclusion that you'll need to have. If you're doing the paper, you need a title page. So it needs to have your climate zone name, your group member names, and it needs to have 1 image. Paragraph 1 should be any factors affecting your climate zone, how they affect it. Paragraph 2 should be the countries and the major cities, and you need to describe each of those areas. Paragraph 3 should be common plants and animals, and you need to describe some of those. Paragraph 4, the effect of the population and any events that's happening because of the population in that area, so anything detrimental. Paragraph 5, give me some foods and describe where they're found in that climate zone. Paragraph 6, any cultural events and describe each of those events. And then paragraph 7, give me other information and give me a conclusion. So let's talk about some natural processes that change climate. The first one of those is volcanic eruptions. So any of the aerosols that come with a volcanic eruption, so ash, dust, sulfur, those are reflecting solar radiation back to space. So it's going to cause the atmosphere around that volcano after the eruption to cool down significantly. One great example is in the Philippines in 1991, we had an eruption of Mount Pinatubo. And you can see the ash, you can see the aerosols in the image here in the middle, and you can see how small Mount Pinatubo actually is off the coast of the Philippines in the image off to the right. Other natural processes that change climate, vegetation is a big one. Plant life is going to promote cloud formation, and it's going to absorb CO2. So if you take a look at the image on the right-hand side, you can see in 1950, that place is covered almost completely with vegetation. And as you move through the years, in 2010, that's the most recent depiction, you can see that over half of that has already dissipated, has already gone away. And prediction by the year 2020 is that you will have even half of that remaining. Okay, so vegetation is very important. So if we don't have vegetation to absorb CO2, there's going to be more CO2 in the atmosphere. Other natural processes, ocean circulation is a big one. So changes in circulation can result in short-term climate fluctuations. So you can see the thermocline circulation there with the Great Ocean Current. You have your warm surface flow, your cool subsurface flow. We talked about that already, but just keep in mind that that is a natural process that will change your climate. Solar activity is another one. Sunspots. These are the dark blemishes that occur when the sun is most active. So when we have warm periods in Europe and here in North America, that's when you get these sunspots like you can see in the images down here at the bottom. Okay. Another natural process is the motion of the Earth. So you have geographic changes in land and water bodies. That's going to cause a climate change. And change in the shape of the Earth's orbit and the tilt. So the Earth is kind of on a wobble. It's not perfectly on its axis. So the change in that tilt is also going to affect climate. The greenhouse effect is one more thing that is a natural process. It warms the atmosphere and Earth's surface from solar radiation. So you can see you have the atmosphere layer and it kind of keeps that solar radiation in. Let's talk about human impact. So greenhouse effect again. The human impact of this is that we're increasing the amount of CO2 gas that goes back into the atmosphere. Okay, so that's by greenhouse gas emissions, that's by fuel emissions, smog, smoke, all of those things are detrimental to the atmosphere. Other effects, we do affect global warming. Again, this is partially because of greenhouse gases, because increases of CO2, and that's something that we have done as humans. There's evidence for a warming Earth. So evidence of global warming is that you have a rising surface temperature. So it's changing precipitation patterns. We have ice that's being melted, so glaciers, polar ice caps, and the sea level's actually rising. So if you take a look at the images here, the first image is from 1950. Okay, this is from the Glacier National Park in Montana. You can see that there's plenty of glacier there. And then the other is from 2005, and you can clearly see that the glacier has dissipated. So what's the cause of climate change? Several studies have been done that support an increase in greenhouse gases. That's the primary number one cause. As you can see, we have more cars, we have more factories, we have more industry. And the increase in greenhouse gas is because we're burning fossil fuels and we're using the land differently. So the development of unused land for housing or for malls or whatever. So if you take a look at this image, you can see that the atmospheric CO2, this is at Mauna Loa, this is in Hawaii. The CO2 has actually increased incredibly from 1960 to 2010, and it's going to continue to do so unless we can change our way of thinking, and that's where eco-friendly comes into place. So the recent monthly mean at Mauna Loa, so the average CO2 expulsion into the air, so from 2010 to actually 2014, this actually shows it's still increasing, not quite as dramatically as it was, but you have to think we've also been taking precautions with electric cars being eco-friendly, reducing, reusing, recycling. All of those things play a part into CO2 emissions. So CO2 levels in the atmosphere, they have actually reached a record-breaking level, okay? And you can see that's happened just recently from April of 2014, okay? And this is still from the Mauna Loa Observatory. Last couple of things, global carbon cycle. So you can see how you have an atmospheric pool of carbon that's in the air that gets pushed down into the ocean, pulled back out of the ocean. We have destruction of vegetation that's going to release more CO2. Destruction of soil that's going to release more CO2. But our land plants and our oceans are the main things that are going to take in that CO2 and help to break it back down. And that's it for today.